Welcome everyone. It's time for another episode of Old Roommates. This week on the show, we revisit The Real World, Season 1. So grab 6 strangers, have a seat, and listen in. We are about to start our episode.
Hey, welcome everyone to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. This is Brian.
And this is Christina.
And today we are talking about The Real World, MTV's groundbreaking reality show. Some say it ruined MTV altogether. Some say it launched a whole new type of television. It launched May 21st, 1992, and ran until August 13th, 1992, that whole summer of 92. We begin, as we always do, by talking about then, Christina, what is your relationship, your first memories of The Real World?
Thank you for asking. Right, I think this is one of those revisits, very rare revisits, that we actually watched together.
Not this season, though.
It wasn't this season?
No, it was Chicago. I believe it was
Chicago was the first
Seattle.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, because that's when you lived with me.
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
That's when we were roommates. Yeah.
So I did watch this. I must have been with Lisa or somebody. I must have been. But anyway, I remember watching The Real World a lot with you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. In fact, I actually have a painting that you
oh my God, New Orleans
gave to me for my birthday. I forget what year it was, but it was Melissa from The Real World, New Orleans.
Yes.
Had painted it with the little fish.
The fish.
It's still hanging in my bathroom as we speak.
Yay.
So I appreciate that. Anyway, so my relationship is, sitting on the couch, watching it, very excited to peer into the lives of people, right? It was really, like you said, very groundbreaking, very new, very interesting, very fascinating to see just these people relating to each other. I thought it was cool and I couldn't wait to watch it. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. And I thought it was very controversial. Like some of the fights were very whoa, I can't believe they're yelling at each other and I can't believe that just happened. Very, very crazy. What about you, Brian?
I was obsessed with this show.
Yeah.
I was obsessed. And if any of them were ever on a magazine cover or Entertainment Weekly or Interview Magazine, I mean, I would just gobble up whatever I could about these folks. I think I even maybe bought Rebecca's album.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, I just loved the show so much. It just felt so fresh. And I think I didn't go away to college. I commuted and then I was working full time. I went to college part time, but I went away to Disney World and I worked there for 6 months.
Did you live in a house with strangers?
I absolutely did. And, but that was 93. So this is the year after. But I think because I didn't have that sort of roommate experience watching the show, and I was always sort of fascinated with New York and so just seeing it was just a perfect combination of so many different kinds of people. I just loved it. Everything felt so raw and fresh.
Raw,
and,
great word for it.
I loved it. And it was kind of fun because it was when I think about how I would hang out with my friends then, it was you would stay up late, you're playing cards, you're just talking, making crank calls, just being stupid. And they allowed, at least the editing allowed them to be a little stupid at times. But at the same time, they all have these goals and dreams, and they never made it look easy, which I appreciated.
Right.
And so, just loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it.
How did you feel about it, Brian?
I hated it. Yeah. So that was then, and this is now. Christina, when did you rewatch The Real World?
So I rewatched it over the period of last week, basically last week.
Okay.
And we talked about this a tiny bit before we started recording, but I feel like I was bamboozled.
Oh no.
Yes. Because and this is entirely my fault. Usually I leave that last, because we record on Sundays, I usually leave that Saturday kind of open-ish. Like, I don't cancel plans, but I know I have
just in
case a time to just sort of bang out whatever I need to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I went away this weekend at my sister's house, so I did not have that that Saturday comfort zone. But I looked at these episodes and I'm like, oh, they're 22 minutes long. Easy peasy. I can at least do 4 in a row, right? Like, that's easy for me. So I go to sit down, and I usually get these things from the library. I didn't do it this time, and I'm kicking myself for it. Paramount Plus. It's good for a lot of things, but let me tell you something. It's on the shit list right now because...
So many commercials.
So many fucking commercials, Brian.
In 90 seconds each time. And there's at least 3.
Oh, good Lord.
So, yeah, you're tagging...
So my 22 minutes turned to 45 minutes. I swear to God. They had 20 minutes
There's
of
a lot of commercials.
It was so much. And it was so hard to watch them in a row.
I know.
And I had to do 2 in a row, but it was a chore for 2 in a row. And so it was not a pleasurable experience for me because I knew I was a time crunch.
Yeah.
I knew I only had 5 days. I had 13 episodes. Yeah. I was like, when am I going to freaking do this? Yeah. So unfortunately, I had that kind of feeling going in.
Yeah.
And I will say, if we're going to just dive into now.
Yeah, of course. I bet you have the same note.
Reality shows have come a long way.
Okay.
And I think in terms of not only the real, quote, people in front of the camera, they kind of seen it before. They know what they're looking for. Yeah. But the editing, the people behind the cameras, I think they've come a long way. They know what is intriguing and what is interesting and what is going to sell, if you will. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things have already been done before, so they don't want to repeat things and make it boring. The first season of The Real World didn't have any of that behind them, which worked in their favor in a lot of ways, but it also made it a bit boring.
Oh, okay.
For me. Where I'm kind of waiting for things to happen.
Oh.
And I think it's because I've seen a lot of reality shows since then.
Yes.
Kind of waiting for things to happen. Kind of waiting for conversations to go somewhere. Kind of waiting to learn something new. And there wasn't a lot of that. So not only was I bombarded with these commercials, but also it felt like
an eternity
to me. So that is my now initially. What was your initial, here we are revisiting this, initial thoughts of revisiting?
So I'm going to tell you something really interesting happened with Paramount Plus with me. So I was I had a bowl of cereal, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll just chop down, watch a couple episodes, but I want to take notes. I'm just gonna enjoy them. Mm-hmm. Christina, right into God, not a single commercial. And I was I watched the first 2 episodes like that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a piece of cake. Mm-hmm. I thought there were going to be commercials. This is great. The next day, I sit down with my notebook. I'm going to watch the whole thing again, the first 2 episodes and then more. Commercials. Oh. I'm clearly Paramount Plus knew that I was going to be watching because I watched it yesterday or 2 days earlier. And now they're just flooding everything. There's so many commercials. Come on, Paramount Plus. Come on.
I mean, come on is right. I'm going to stop watching Paramount Plus. I'm telling you.
Oh, shit.
I mean, I haven't pulled the plug now. But Jesus, I could just watch regular TV if I'm going to watch all those goddamn commercials. Enough is enough, people.
Enough is enough. So, right off the bat, one huge negative is the music. I remember the songs they would use. I remember Wiggle It Just a Little, or I'm Too Sexy For,
Right.
Or when they played Why by Annie Lennox during the fight with Julie and Kevin. Those are burned in my brain because I watched that season so many times when I was younger. But now they don't have the rights to any of that music.
Right.
And instead you have these Muzak versions.
Yeah.
It's stock music. It is so not good because those things were like timestamps. Like when you
Right.
heard a song, it brought you back to a certain time. And I think now, as revisiting this for like a nostalgic project, it loses something.
It's really interesting because it was noticeable that it didn't have that MTV feel to it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put my finger on it. Why?
Yeah.
And I would just chalked it up to it was the first season and they didn't know enough to put good music on it, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that they just didn't have the rights now, so they had to do something different. So that's interesting. It did not feel like that cool MTV vibe.
No, like the scene where they find that dog and then they're walking and they were playing the song by Karen White called "Walking a Dog" and it's like about her bad boyfriend. But it's hilarious because the timing is so beautifully done in the original with the song because it's like the dog attacks that dog in the dog park and it's. But this song is like this like sort of sexy revenge song and it's just hilarious because the dog is so ugly and he's like walking down the street and it's like and I remember the song vividly and instead you just get like this like bonk bonk bing bonk bonk and it's like no
No.
But anyway, I digress. Episode 1, I just God damn it, I loved it. I just love these guys. Julie and her dad, he says to her, I don't give a damn how you feel about things.
Yes.
Holy shit.
Wow, really?
Can you imagine your
Right?
parent saying that to your face with a camera on him? So that means he probably...
So he just doesn't care at all.
At all.
He really doesn't even...
He's not even sugarcoating it.
Nope.
And then
Nope.
she says, well, I have a problem with that. An example she uses, I think before he says that, though, is like, well, like, I think it's okay to grow hair down to your butt. He says... When did you start saying butt?
Yeah.
Julie is amazing. What a perfect cast member. Like to see this experience through her. I think it was such a smart decision. Even through a middle-aged lens, I still think it's a really smart decision.
I agree. I liked Julie, but is that a butt for you?
No, it's not a butt. There's no butts.
But
And when did you start saying butt?
But
Yeah.
I felt like at least 80% of I don't know, maybe not 80, 75% of the episodes, it was either the Julie show or the Eric show. I felt it was so heavy-handed with Julie. The fact that we start at her house and we spent like most of the episode with Julie.
Yes.
Traveling there. We don't see that for the others.
Well,
They don't start at their houses at Eric's house. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't start at Eric's house. But, like, I know they all live in New York, right? So this is the difference, right? So it's Julie is from Alabama or wherever.
Yeah.
But I just felt it was so heavy on Julie. I just felt like she was the center person and everyone was just sort of living with her and teaching her how to be a New Yorker. For a big part of like the first few episodes.
I don't disagree, and yet I think it was the right choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have liked to have gotten to know the others a little bit better.
We are in like the Northeast. When we watched this the first time around, we were all living in the Northeast.
Sure.
I think we sometimes forget that much of the country maybe has never even been to New York City.
Right.
And I think MTV made the smart choice to be like, instead of just dropping them in with all these artists in a loft, they need that person. They need to like live vicariously through someone. And that person, Julie, I still, through my middle age lens, I think it's even a smarter choice the more I think about it.
Yeah.
It made sense as a narrative. And it didn't bother me because I think she's great TV. I think she's so likable.
I think she is too.
However,
I
agree. Eric, oh wow. Oh my god, is that is that a middle-aged lens or what? Eric is so problematic in so many ways. Like he's both self-obsessed and completely lacks self-awareness.
Yep.
Like it's
1,000%.
so, right?
Oh
like,
my god.
And listen, is this fair to criticize someone who's like 20 years old back in 1992 and how they're living their lives? It's not fair. But to watch this show for the sake of this podcast and to analyze, talk about it a little bit, watching it through my middle-aged lens, like back then I was like, oh my god, Eric, God, he's like so cute and he's so fun and he's so like party guy and he's learned his lessons and the ladies
he was very
love
deep.
him.
He was very deep back then. Wasn't he? He like knew.
Well,
he was worldly. He knew a lot. He lived a lot of life.
Trying new things and da-da-da-da. And like, and the rollerblading in the street. So many of the things that I thought were cool are now like, oh wow, dude.
Can you imagine hanging out with him for about an hour?
Well, now he's what he is now. He's like a big like yogi master.
Yes, I mean hanging out with him then for like an hour.
Yeah, I mean there's still people like that now that have that issue, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of perhaps a lot of models. It is it was kind of wild. And did you think do you think he's as hot now through your middle-age lens?
I thought he was a lot hotter then.
Then.
Yeah. Now he just seems, I mean, he had a nice body, obviously.
Yeah.
And he's cute. But he's a little bit, what's the word?
Broy, dude.
He just didn't seem very
kind of cookie cutter. When he says,
that's a good word for it.
I don't have as chiseled a face as the other guys. I'm like, you're right. He does have a great body. Absolutely. But I remember him being
a little
like
averagey.
He's cute. He's cute. Back then, I was like, oh my God. Like, look at him. Yeah. But now it's like, oh, he's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eric's the first one there, and he's like, hey, you have to come check out the loft. It's dope. Again, problematic. Eric's tone of voice, his accent, his inflections, everything about the way he talks gets a little bit altered depending on who he's talking to.
Yes.
And I think it's borderline racist.
Definitely, yeah.
Right. Did you feel that? Like I was like,
I felt it 1,000%. When he's talking to Heather, it's a very different voice than if he's talking to Becky.
Completely.
Yes.
Talking to Julie versus talking to Kevin.
Yep.
It's like, oh, he's a boy, he's my bro. It's like, oh, yeah. Yo, MTV raps. But it's like, it bothered me so much. Like, it never didn't bother me back then. It bothered me a lot.
I thought he was great back then, but watching him now, I'm like, ugh. And even I watched a lot of this with Matt and my husband, and he was the same way. He's like, because I had said something like, oh, it's like the Julie show, and he's like, I feel like it's the Eric show. Mm-hmm. He's just on here constantly. So every episode, it seemed like the first 4 episodes was either Julie or Eric. If the camera wasn't on Eric or Julie, the people in the loft were talking about Eric or Julie.
I think
the
other thing too, from what I realized, is like and Kevin says it actually kind of openly. They didn't always stay there every night. Julie
Which was so
definitely did.
Right?
Yeah, Julie definitely did.
Because she had nowhere else to go.
Exactly. It seemed like Heather did. I think that's why they bonded so quickly.
Yeah.
Becky was just sometimes not even in scenes.
Yeah.
It's like multiple scenes. She's nowhere to be found. Andre, same thing.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like, oh, I wish I learned more about them.
Sleeping all the time, I think.
Sleeping
That's
a lot.
what he alluded to.
Yeah. But, like, when he did his music, it was always in Staten Island, right? Staten Island or New Jersey or whatever. So, but I think, maybe I think Eric and Julie, we'll also think on the editing, they were trying to get something going with them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it was very very, very obvious. But yeah, so I think that's why we saw a lot of them. But yeah, Eric was first, then Becky, then Kevin, Norman, Heather, Andre, and Julie was last. I did find it funny when, this is a quick aside, when Norman walks in with the dog.
Oh my God, how funny that they brought in a dog and a cat.
And Kevin says in the background, I thought they said no pets.
Oh, I didn't hear that. That's so
awesome.
funny.
So funny.
So I thought it was really interesting that they weren't required to stay at the loft every night.
That would be part of the experiment.
That felt to me that it should have been part of the experiment. I feel like it's moving forward. They were required, I think. But I also felt like in the other seasons, it was people from all over.
They couldn't just leave.
So right. I thought it was a little bit odd that everybody was from New York except for Julie.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit different. I thought it was so funny that there was a dog and a cat there. And what you said, some people were not even there all the time. Like Kevin was hardly there. Becky was hardly there.
Yeah.
And you barely see Andre, but I feel like, he probably was other places as well, but I felt like he was just sleeping all the time. And even when he was there, he was just so mellow and didn't have a lot to say. And I mean, I liked him. I liked all of them, really.
Oh, I liked all of them.
They were all likable people. I could see you and I just hanging out with them, all of them.
Yeah.
Kevin was a little bit much. He was a little bit uppity. Felt like he didn't belong.
So I guess we're just jumping all around.
Let's just jump all around. We can't possibly go.
We're not going to dive into every single episode. Although that's how I broke up my notes. So
I'm
going to be
mine
skimming.
Too.
Here's my big issue, middle-age lens with Kevin, because I have a bit to say about him. My issue with Kevin through my middle-aged lens, because when I was younger, I thought he brought a lot of drama, a lot of good dialogue. And I will say, I give this show a lot of credit now and then for talking about racism so much.
Absolutely.
And yes, sometimes it led to fighting, but you know what? At least the conversations were being had.
Yes.
And people stuck it out. I think when it changed was with Becky and Kevin, because he like flipped his hat at her and then she flipped the hat at him and then she was like, whatever.
Yeah, there were these sort of things about these little violent implications.
Yes. So here's the thing. I think why Kevin, through my middle-aged lens, as a white man...
I know,
But hear me out. When I'm watching these arguments, when someone talks to Kevin about the world at large, in Becky's case, she's talking about the world as a melting pot. America's a melting pot.
Yes.
He makes it hyper-personal.
Yes.
He says, well, melting pot? If you and I went for a job, who would get it? You know why, Becky? Look at my color of my skin. It's like, wait a second. Let's pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. She's talking about America. You're talking about you and your personal experience. That's not where she's coming from. And she even says that. I don't come from there.
Right.
So I don't,
she does.
I can't,
she says that.
To her defense, I think they're both good communicators until Kevin just gets hyper personal. Now look at
he called her a bitch and all this.
Oh, your mother's a stupid.
What the fuck?
What did we say? Your mother's full of shit, stupid bitch. Yeah.
Yes, like how are we going to take you seriously? I was all in on what he had to say.
Yeah.
I get where he came from and he had his point of view and I was all into it and really respecting everything he had to say and I was really enjoying the conversation and the debate until he gets to that point where he's like calling people names.
He's like, you're a fucking racist. And like, what did she
Jesus
say?
Christ,
and
you're just having a conversation.
She's laying on the sofa, being as calm as can be.
And I have to think that they, the MTV people cast him for that reason.
Yeah,
I get that.
He's a poet, writer. He's very political,
very passionate, as
very
he should
passionate,
be. As he should be.
Yeah, I'm not dinging him for passionate. I'm not going to use the angry black man trope. It's just watching these debates and these conversations. Now, fast forward all the way to Julie's fight with Kevin.
Yes.
And what happens there? She is starting from a personal place. Kevin, I really need the phone. And he's like, shut up, da-da-da-da, like, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. She's just saying personal. You and me. Don't threaten me. Don't yell at me. He instantly flips it into black versus white. So meaning this. Becky started America. He went personal. Julie started personal. He went America.
Yep.
He goes into like, look what's happening in LA. And she's like, wait, what the fuck? All I'm saying is like, don't scream at me. Don't threaten me with a candlestick and don't spit at me. The spitting was interesting. So I was watching this with Carl and I was like, I can't imagine, like, how do you get around spitting at someone? But Carl said he gets so close to people that maybe spit came
That's exactly
out.
what it is.
Oh, that's what, okay.
I think that's exactly what it is. That's how I took it.
I can't picture him ever spitting on someone on purpose.
But he gets so close to people.
Close.
That conversation between the two of them outside when he was so close to her, that was really uncomfortable. Like, I thought that was really harassing.
Well, like throwing his arms up. And I want to be clear. If that was Eric, that would still be aggressive.
Oh my God, no matter what.
Completely.
If it was Heather, it would still be aggressive.
If it was Becky, if it was Norman, even when
you just don't go that close to somebody when you're in their personal space.
When Norman is yelling at Kevin, like, there's no disrespect. I was like, holy shit, Norman, you're too close.
Yes.
Like, I thought Norman was losing his cool. And so it really isn't, like, I feel like if there's ever a situation where it's like, this doesn't feel like a black-white issue with Kevin and Julie because they know each other. They've lived together for 2 months already.
Like,
it's like they're friends.
All of that.
You can't do that to someone. Imagine if every time you and I had an argument, I brought up me being gay and how hard my life is as a gay.
You do. But we don't have to talk about that. And get out of my face, Brian. But the other thing I noticed about Kevin, and it's not going to be like, we'll just start with Kevin. We don't have to talk about him the whole episode.
Yeah.
But the other thing, because I did like him, and I
did too.
I became disappointed in him because I really enjoyed what he had to say. But the thing I noticed about Kevin, two things. One is he's like a poet, and he always talks about what a great communicator he is.
Yeah.
He's a sucky communicator. He's a terrible communicator.
Oh, leaving passive-aggressive notes in the wall.
Notes,
Yep, the notes.
He writes notes.
The
He wrote a letter to Eric.
Not a good idea.
And exactly what you had just said. He twists things around. He's not communicating. He's just defensive.
Yep.
And he's trying to win the argument in any way he can. So that's one thing. He's just a terrible communicator. But then the other thing I noticed is he cannot take any kind of criticism about himself. You could have said, you sleep too late. What are you saying? All black people sleep too late? You're racist. Like, he turned everything into, you're saying this because I'm black. No, we're saying this because you're being an asshole. There's a complete difference to that. And that is what I noticed about him. Like, he can never take personal responsibility for the person that he is. He always relied on, no, you're being racist. I am not like that. You're saying all black people are like that. Like, he turned it around in such a terrible way.
He does say he brought into that house a lot of prejudices.
Yes.
Some have he said this, some have been disproven, some have not been.
Right.
And so so he's going to this project with MTV as a bit of an experiment for him, and also, but almost with a little bit of an agenda. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's kind of clear because he just twists, even with Eric, it's like he just twists every argument. And it's like, if you're talking about him, he makes it about all black people. If you're talking about America, he makes it about himself as a black man. Yeah. It's like, I really do, I understand the energy. I don't understand what it's like being black, but I understand the energy and the passion behind that. I just don't know if this is necessary.
Right.
Like, these are people you've been living with for a month, 2 months, almost 3 months at the Julie fight. And it's like, really? This is how you're going to go out? Like, you've known her. If you really think she's racist, if you think Becky's racist, like, I mean, those are such strong, nasty.
Very, very strong words. And it didn't feel like, I know a lot of reality shows do this. It didn't feel like they were being egged on to do something, right? Like, it didn't feel like the producers were saying, oh, Julie maybe racist. You know what I mean? It felt like it was real conversations.
In fact, what they were realizing is that things were happening while they were filming where it's like, oh my God, this isn't going to make sense. So as we saw in the last episode, there's like these giant cables everywhere. And I guess a lot of times they were tripping over them, the roommates.
Yeah.
And, but even that fight with Julie and Kevin, they had to drop stuff down from the window on a cable because they didn't expect it to go outside, and they drew such a huge crowd that they were like, yeah, we have to go inside because like they weren't sure what was really happening, like they were filming something, or like filming it, something staged, but they said no, and sometimes it would suck because we would miss something, so then we'd have to do like a one-on-one where they explain how something happened. And they said it wasn't ideal, but that was the technology back then.
That was technology. That was just the first reality show, right?
Yeah.
So crazy.
A huge plus, and this is pretty consistent throughout. We talk a lot about this on the podcast. Kind of the whole point of the podcast is that, like, when we revisit older things, like, do we feel old or how does it make us feel? I felt younger watching this. Like, it really brought back, nice...
Totally.
I wanted to dance all the time. Mm-hmm. There's so much dancing in this show, particularly during the closing credits.
Yep.
Like, these guys are having fun.
It was so much fun.
The
Staying up late, being kind of irresponsible, drinking,
dancing, climbing over tables. Like Becky and
games.
Becky and the Dixie Cup Material Girl. Like, just funny.
Really fun, yeah.
Oh my God.
It really brings you back.
It does. And the dancing, there's so much dancing, and I was like, oh my God, I want to dance. But it didn't make me feel old.
No, it didn't.
It made me feel young. It was kind of a nice feeling.
Coming home in the middle of the night drunk and waking up your roommates and stuff.
Oh yeah, making food.
Oh my God,
chit-chatting, reading the Love and Sex book.
Yes, we have that.
We have that book. And maybe because it is a reality show that you're like brought back, like, that now you're the same age as these people right now, but you still it's still you.
Well, here's the other thing too. Watching it, going back there, And being in that time where there weren't any cell phones and they were sharing one landline phone and they were really forced to just interact with each other and you were really in the moments.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I felt, oh my God, that's the kind of stuff that I really miss is being in a group of people and no one is on a phone. No one's answering a text immediately. No one is somewhere else.
Yeah.
And even just having a conversation and not having the answer right away, too.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, let me look that up. Like, there was none of that. It was just so freeing.
Yeah.
In just so many ways. Oh, I just loved it. Loved it.
I really liked so many great conversations. Even episode 2, Eric does sexy ads. So he's on this TV show.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
With Faith Daniels. And someone says, I think Eric says to Heather, if they said, oh, Heather, we like your rap, but if you want to sell this, you got to take your clothes off. And Heather had the perfect reply, which is, if I had no talent,
exactly,
I would take my clothes off if I didn't have the talent. Yep. But because I know I have the talent, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. Heather B is perhaps my favorite of the roommates, actually. She's just great TV.
Heather,
and she's so unassuming. She's so herself.
She's just so real.
So real.
I agree with you, and I was thinking about that because I'm like, oh, I know this is going to be a question, like who you like best or whatever. And I agree. I think Heather was the most consistent from day one till the end of the, whatever. She was most consistent to the roommates. She didn't act differently to any of the roommates. She just told it like it is. Oh my God.
Well, how about even with Julie, episode 1? You have a beeper. Why do you have a beeper? Do you sell drugs? Right. Now, if that was Kevin,
that would have been a completely different situation.
But Heather laughed it off, and she's like, "I'll talk to Julie later." Like, that is the right decision.
That is the right response.
And then towards the end of the season, she's fighting with Eric a lot. And she's like, "Eric, I hate you, right?" But then one thing is, at one point, she's like, "Eric and I talked about it, and we're good now." I'm like, "Wait." That was off camera.
Like you actually, yes.
You really talked about it. Like the camera didn't catch that conversation, which is unfortunate because it's the opposite of the Julie and Kevin thing where they didn't catch the fight. So it's like, but I understand that because it takes a long time to set up those cameras and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But
Heather was great. I thought she was very talented too. Like,
yes.
The rapping and all. Oh my God, so good. She was so funny when she had the crush on the basketball player.
Yes, yeah.
And, we were actually watching that and we're like, oh, this is like MTV money, like getting them these tickets and like setting this all up.
Yeah.
And all of that. But she was just fun and really like, you wanted to hang out with her.
Yeah. Well, she's like, and she said to him, she's like, oh, I heard you wanted to meet me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, so funny.
I did like what I loved is that the editors chose to leave that in, but when she's doing her music and the guy says, Heather, you have to stop drinking water. It's getting all caught up in your throat.
Yeah.
She's like, all right, you don't have to get graphic. But like, she still was like, she just puts it all out there.
She does.
I thought she was great. And it was so funny because I'm like, oh, she's doing really well like with the rapping. And they would cut and be like, let's do that again. I was like, oh, I like that one. Yeah.
I did find it interesting that everybody had sort of something to promote. They had a band or the poetry. Everybody was in the arts. There was a painter. And even Julie was a dancer. I thought that was an interesting choice for them to all have those. Obviously, it was an intended choice.
That was the audition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, when they did announcements when MTV did announcements for this, they said people in the arts because they thought they would be able to explore a more interesting part, like interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting choice. And I didn't feel like, it gave us something to talk about them too. Yeah. Like I know I could see them being like, well, are they all just going to be sitting staring at each other? Like not having anything to do? So that was kind of an interesting, an interesting choice.
By the way, Julie is an amazing dancer. Holy shit, she's flying all around
She was so
floor.
good.
Yeah, she was really good.
She was really, really good.
Laughed out loud when they're picking up the poop. With Gouda's poop.
Oh God, funny.
And Heather's like, that's nasty. And Julie's like, I'm not using my fingers. And then Julie runs, Gouda runs, and Heather wipes.
Oh my God.
Oh, so good.
Reminded me of us. It really did. It reminded me of us. A lot of these conversations and things reminded me of us.
Well, just like playing games late at night, like all that.
Yeah,
It's
all of
just
that stuff.
fun.
Living on like no sleep.
Yes. So I got PTSD
Oh.
when I heard the name Missy. Oh my, Eric's girlfriend.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, I remembered her so vividly with her baby voice. I wrote,
Yeah.
Missy's not even on screen yet, and I can hear her voice haunting my ears.
Mm-hmm.
Stop! No!
Sorry, Missy, if you're listening.
Oh, Missy. I mean, she was young.
Missy. Yeah.
Julie and Eric's story about how she woke them up. Oh, that was pretty cute. When Julie wakes up Eric about blueberries, pancakes, whatever.
Oh,
That was pretty funny. Although I got a little middle-aged lens because she was letting the water run the entire conversation.
No, yeah.
It went on for way too long.
Like, shut that water off. I thought it was funny when, I think it was Becky was going to have, they were talking about how they're not always there and they want to have a dinner party and, you know, trying to figure out like how they can all get together more. And she's like, I'm going to cook dinner. I'm going to have a dinner party. And she makes chicken, rice, and vegetables.
Well, but she's young.
But it was so funny.
I know. But she's also
well,
she calls her mother for starters. She's like, Mom, what should I make for 8 people? But I thought that was pretty funny and pretty ambitious. I like that she said, I feel like the mom, and I think that Becky absolutely reminds me of some friends I have in my life.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to say know-it-all. I'm going to say they use their experience to influence a lot of conversations and takes. Do you know what I mean? And Becky is such that personality. But I really liked her. I kind of wish she was in it more.
I didn't remember her that much.
I remember being young and thinking she was annoying as all hell.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, she's annoying. She's too bossy. She's too bitchy. She's too moody. But this time around, I was like, oh, she's just trying to be mature. I think she feels like this house needs some order. So she's like, at one point, she's like, episode 1, she's like, let's have a quiet section and a loud section.
Yeah,
no one else had any suggestions.
Nobody else had any, Yeah, no, that was really smart.
And then the meeting, that was her idea. So it was a lot of these things were like, you know, I mean, did she make some questionable choices? Yes. But like even the stuff with and I laughed at that when they cut to her on the roof and she's all covered up and says, yeah, it's Becky, like the super on screen. It's like, yeah, it's Becky. And she's talking about like Julie and Eric's relationship and she's just wise. Like I feel like she's very smart. Like I really loved her even more. Yeah,
I really liked her too.
Yeah.
I do wish she was on screen more.
Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, her hooking up with the director of one of the directors.
Lord.
So another interesting choice, they sent only the girls to Jamaica.
Oh, that made sense.
I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
How the boys must have been pissed.
I think they had to do that a little bit just to like break up the group to see how they would act. And it, you know, and I know that fight with Kevin happened after they knew they were leaving.
Yeah.
But I think the timing couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah.
I do have a what the fuck. Like, there were what the fuck. He's trying to model the cologne in the store, and they're squirting him with squirt guns. How unprofessional.
Yeah.
And he's like, squirt me, baby. And like, Julie should know better.
Yes.
Like, Norm should know better. They're squirting him while he's standing on the counter. Water's probably getting everywhere.
Yep. Norm is another one that I didn't feel like had enough airtime. I loved Norm. I thought Norm was great, but I just don't feel like they thought he was interesting enough or something. I feel like he was hardly in it.
Unless it was about him.
Right.
Yeah, right, yeah. And I wondered maybe he wasn't in it a lot in the first couple episodes. Maybe he wasn't there very much.
Maybe
He
not,
was trying to wrap things up. I don't know. So just jumping all around, Andre's sick in episode 3, and he's like, I'd rather be dead than sick. At least I could sleep. And I was like, so relatable. I am the worst sick person ever.
He was funny. I didn't remember much about him either.
Yeah.
And I really liked him too. He was just so easy going.
Easy.
Just easy. Like no drama.
No nonsense.
Just like, hey, you know, I just want to sleep and smoke.
And he's a very good communicator because what he'll say, he said things to Julie, to Eric, and to Kevin at different times saying, what I think I'm hearing is like that they're not understanding. And still people still yelled at him for it. But he was really trying to listen.
Yes.
And that could have helped a lot of other people in this cast.
Another one that I thought was quite talented. Although the first time they showed him, my note was, is that Citizen Dick from
Singles.
from Singles?
Singles, yeah.
But not necessarily the band. The band itself was like loud, and it was loud. But when you hear him singing in his voice, he had a really nice voice. Yeah. I really liked that voice.
I think he had all the rock star elements.
Oh,
there.
Totally.
Super cute face, great hair.
Yeah.
He had the moves. I love how much his mom supported him.
Oh my God.
And she's like, I was right there with you, you know. And he just seems like a nice guy.
Yes, definitely.
Julie's lost in episode 3. It's hilarious because, I mean, I think most people would know this, but like, she's supposed to go uptown, and she's literally jumping on the Brooklyn train, which is not uptown.
Downtown, yeah.
Exactly. Then we get to Eric's modeling. The hair pulling was a little...
It was. I was like, "Whoa, what is happening here?"
I'm like, through my middle-aged lens, I was like, "Holy shit, MTV!" It was pretty like
that was
hot,
a lot.
But it was like, very hot. But really, like,
well, I just thought it was funny. Like the making out was like not even scripted. They're like, "Well, we just started kissing," and they're like, "All right, go for it."
Although,
and I'm like, are they shooting like a porn right now?
Yeah, it's
like,
a little. What exactly
very
is this
porny.
for? Yeah. Well, he said it's like. Oh no, he was talking about the commercial. He's like, "Well, you can't smell your TV." I'm like, "Oh, you're so profound." Jesus Christ. But he there's something else. But when he says like, you know, she dates like rock stars and stuff, like, what does she see in me? And it's like, maybe the camera crew that's surrounding your every move. Like, you don't think she thought this would be good for her career?
Yeah.
Like exposure?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh God, the stove is filthy. So the middle-aged lens comes into play with the cleanliness of the house. I would be losing my fucking mind.
Well, it was funny because I felt like a lot until like the Kevin stuff. I felt like most of the drama was, you didn't clean up after yourself, screaming at each other. So I'm like, oh my God, very roommate-y stuff. But yeah, just clean your dishes, just put them away. And I guess that is a middle-aged lens for sure.
Episode 3 is also, speaking of Norman, he reveals he's bisexual. He supports this by saying he's a Pisces.
Which is funny, right?
Always looking for the other fish. And Heather says something really sweet about Norman. They're at the Roxy roller skating, and she says, Norman makes you feel like a kid. He makes you feel free. Yeah. And Heather's whole thing is authenticity. She can't stand Eric because he's so self-obsessed and so guarded about everything.
That's exactly
and she loves Norman because he's exactly the opposite.
I thought it was funny that Andre's band gets broken up by the cops in the basement, but they look like cops that you hired.
Yeah, they look very young.
They didn't seem like New York cops to me.
Yeah. Julie sort of tests her family on the phone. Oh yeah, she doesn't say Norman's bisexual or Norman's gay. When she's talking to her father, she says she went to a club and there were homosexuals there. I thought that was very interesting.
That is interesting.
So I think she wanted to test to see the family reaction before she said, oh, one of my roommates is gay or one of my roommates is bi.
Yeah.
You know, that was very smart of her to do it that way.
Yeah, she's a smart girl. So it seems like episode 4 was more Becky centered.
I wrote, I love Becky in this episode.
Yeah.
She's open, honest, funny. She has a lot of sex talk. Dixie Cup material is really, really cute. You know, she's just, she feels like a kind of a free spirit, but she has that thing where the maturity, she's like, wait, I'm a grown up. Like, she doesn't, like, there's lines to things. Like, even at the end, when she's like, the party has to end. Like, she's like, I'm going to be bawling my eyes out. At the same time, I don't want it to keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very commonsensical.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah. I will say, like, I related to a lot of what she was up to, too. Like, I'm like, oh, I could see me when I was her age being the same way that she is.
Okay, this brings up perfect timing for my next note here.
Okay.
It's actually episode 3, and I have this as a question. I call it the phony art guy. When they're at the gallery, and the guy's like, maybe you two should come over sometime, and we'll turn flowers into food. And Becky is like, oh, yeah, like committed. And Julie's like, oh, yeah, we'll have to do that sometime. Like, super obnoxiously dismissive.
Funny.
I understand both.
Yep.
And I think the middle-aged me would be Julie.
Yes.
The younger version would have been Becky.
1000%.
Yeah.
Well, I was always up for everything. When I was in my 20s.
You have to
like,
you have to go along with shit sometimes.
Yeah.
Like even if the person's being obnoxious, like especially if you're new in a new city.
Yep.
And because I definitely made that mistake in New York when I lived there. You remember Nick?
Yes.
And we would meet people all the time, and like it would go to different bars, and like there would be people that are like, oh, well, I've been all around the world, and I think New York is fine, but Paris, and I'm like, and if Nick was here, he would vouch for this. Because we would meet people like this,
yes,
that love talking about themselves that way, and I would be like, really? I'm like, what's Toledo like? Like, have you been to Toledo? And I would, like, honestly, like, play dumb. Like, I've never been to Kansas. Like, what's your favorite city in Kansas? Like, it's like just to kind of, like, really mock them, but in a stupid way.
But
and Nick would die laughing.
And they're so self-centered, they
so
never
notice. They'd not even catch it.
I
haven't
notice.
been. I know, I've
they just
never
assume.
been there. I mean, like, the major cities.
They just assume you're
it's
fawning
like, oh, you're
over
so
them.
snotty. It's like, God, it's like,
That's
give
hilarious.
it, who cares? Yeah, so
this is where Eric... I said, Eric has a point. Clean up after yourself. This is like the one time I'm like behind him. They had this big fight about who left the water on the stove. Oh my God, are we ever going to figure it out?
When he says, look at that in that sink. That just kills me.
And he goes, I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of crazy around here. Talking about the water on the stove. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking crazy, man.
I just wrote again, they love to dance, these guys, and I love it. I wrote, some revisits make me feel old. This revisit makes me feel young.
This is the Kevin letter, episode 2 as episode 4. I know we're not supposed to go episode.
It's okay, yeah.
We're going to be here for 3 hours. But this is the Kevin episode, right? With the Kevin letter.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. Heather and Julie are like hanging out, and Heather wants to read the letter. Yeah. And Julie's like, we really shouldn't be reading his letter. And 2 seconds later, okay, I'll read it to you. Heather was doing something in the bathroom.
Well, then the handwriting's so bad that people can't even read it. That's
no
really
one can read
funny.
it. Oh my God. And he's supposed to be the communicator.
Yeah, Eric's lament, the smoking, the kitchen. He wrote, 4 pounds of meat in a pan. I mean, look at that area. It just kills me. Everyone's wearing sunglasses. The house meeting is an A+. He's like, everyone's wearing sunglasses. People don't look at Kevin says.
No one's looking at each other.
Very smartly, right? Kevin says, no one wants to look at anyone in the eye. And then Julie nails it with Becky, and Becky says, I'm going to get blasted for this. But there's a difference between our ages and your ages. And she has a point.
Yes.
Because Kevin's 25, Becky's 24. And then...
And Julie's 19.
Julie's 19 and Eric's 20.
Yeah.
So she's like, there's a difference between our ages and you guys' ages. Yep. And then Julie doesn't miss a beat and says, well, if this is maturity, let me never be mature. Because there's a lot of self-centeredness in your elderness.
Uh-huh.
And then she's like, I'm not even saying maturity. And she's like, but yeah, well, no, I know, And she goes... It's true, though, Julie. It's true. And then she freaks out at Eric. He's like, listen, it's not going to happen anymore. My sister was here. Now she's gone. It's not going to happen. The conversation's over. And Becky goes, no, the conversation is not over. And they cut to a commercial. I remember that tension. I remember being like in my, 21 years old. And be like, was I 21? I was 20. And it was like, holy shit, like, because she slams the table and they cut to a commercial. It was like, oh.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, exactly.
That was good.
But not for nothing, I would be fucking pissed off if someone's sister...
Oh my God, totally. He had guests over all the time.
Oh my God.
He had guests over all the time. The sister, Missy,
and not even telling anyone.
And never telling anyone. That's the whole thing, too.
That's so rude. Get her.
You have to say, hey, do you mind if she stays over a night, maybe? But that's it.
Not even Eric's place.
No, it's
MTV's place. And also, get your own damn show, Kim.
Do you have an apartment somewhere she can stay in?
Give me a break, Kim. I love the laughter of anytime Julie and Heather are laughing together. It is so genuine and heartwarming.
They're so cute together.
Love them.
So, and I never saw the reunion.
You never saw Homecoming?
No, but I want to see it now.
I was misty-eyed for like the first, I think, 2 full episodes.
Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing it now.
Something kind of major happened.
Okay, don't tell me what that is. You. But I was curious. All right, now maybe I shouldn't even ask. Because I was going to ask if Julie and Heather stayed friends because I feel like...
You have to watch it.
Okay, I'll watch it.
Yes, then episode 5 it begins with Kevin and the black-white thing.
Yeah, we already kind of talked about that.
If your sister's uncomfortable, that's her problem, which is true. You can't feel uncomfortable without your own permission. Right. But if he's being rude to her, that's different.
Right. And he's looking for people to feel uncomfortable.
That's true. Missy is awful. The voice, the posing. She's clearly going for her own show here. I said, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that she's miraculously back in his life just when his modeling career is taking off. Isn't that funny? The change of heart.
On TV.
Isn't that funny how people's hearts just change when someone gets some success?
That's true. Julie goes on a date with Mr. Stockwell.
Okay, so I have to talk about that. But before that, Eric has a genius statement.
Oh, God, what is
it? If
it?
you don't have school, you don't have nothing. He says that.
Eric. So wise. Julie says in episode 6 at one point, put down the phones and get to know each other. Which is so weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know. You don't even know
it's around the corner.
Putting down phones.
I found the scene with Eric and his dad so sad. Eric's dad is so checked out. Like, you just know. How about when he's like, oh, my best friend, blah, blah, blah. He's like, who? He's like, no, my best friend since, like, the first grade. The first grade. That's like me remembering my best friend in the first grade. It's like, you know what, asshole? You should.
You should.
Who is your best friend in the first grade, Christina?
It was Kirsten Eggersheim.
Nice.
Yeah.
Karen Rickabenny. Like that. I didn't even think about it.
Yep.
You should remember your best friend from first grade, everyone. And if you don't, look inward. Episode 6, John. So this guy's name is John Stockwell. I stalked him down. He is on Instagram. 65 years old. Quite frankly, he is still handsome.
Wow.
He is an amazing artist. His painting, he does little landscapes. They're gorgeous. He's on Instagram. John Stockwell.
Wow.
Look him up. So, and I followed it because Norm says, how was your day with Mr. Stockwell? And then Norm says he's an artist. There's that artist competitiveness.
Yeah.
And then what happens is there's another conversation about when they're playing the joke on Kevin. Someone says to Julie, and she's pretending to be a whore, is her words.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that guy John. I bet he has some stories to tell his friends. I'm like, oh, John Stockwell. Let me look him up.
You went quite an investigator there, Brian.
And this is what we do. This is what old roommates does.
Yep.
So he was so awkward, though. But, he's older. I mean, so he was 34. Older. She's 19. He's 34.
He was 34?
Well, if I'm 52... he is 65 right now, 13 years older, but I was 2 years older than Julie.
Oh my goodness, it's a lot of math.
It's a lot of math, but she was 19, he was 34.
Crazy.
Whose idea was that?
Wow. Whose idea was that?
I think Norm set them up. It was so
Norm,
crazy.
No. So that episode was ridiculous because they all did this joke on Kevin. And I'm like, guys, does anyone think this is a good idea?
No, I know.
To play a joke on Kevin after all of that's happened already?
He's so sensitive.
He's so uptight and he's so sensitive. You can't do stuff like
he's
that.
He's also very smart. Yes. And I think him leaving the apartment was him going, I can't be, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I know it's a joke on me somehow, and I don't want any part of it. I need to
But it was so obvious. These people were so ridiculous, especially Julie with the
sex sells. I did laugh when she said sex sells, though.
God. It was so obvious. So then my next note was, how could Kevin not know this was all a joke?
Well, that's my middle-aged lens.
I mean,
I wrote clearly he knew it was a joke, and he got embarrassed and left because he didn't want to be on camera.
Yeah, and that was smart.
I'll tell you something else about the parents thing. So Eric's dad was very, not great. Kevin's mom, I felt so sad. It was very sad because you got this sense of how much money they didn't have when she said, "You can have half a banana."
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is devastating.
Yeah.
Through a middle-aged lens, hits 10 times harder. Kevin performed at the New York Poets Cafe. You know who else performed at the New York Poets Cafe?
Was it you, Brian?
It was me!
No way!
Yes.
So cool.
Back in the 2000s, I performed there for the Fresh Fruit Festival. I was practically booed off the stage by a group of hostile lesbians.
Shut the fuck up.
One elderly lesbian woman.
Was it the roast beef joke?
You got it.
Oh, my God.
And I was, but here's what's so funny. So I have this drag, at the time, I'm not close with her anymore, but this drag queen, Clover Honey, she was the hostess. And she's like, Brian, we really need some stand-up. She's like, this Fresh Fruit Festival is, it's a quick story. Yeah. Fresh Fruit Festival is like all sexual expression. You can be raunchy. And I'm like, well, most of my stuff is pretty sexual and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, good, because we just really need it. And I should have kept it in the back of my head, like, we really need it. Why do you really need stand-up? Because every effing act before me was tragic.
Oh no.
Oh God. The bisexual kid committed suicide.
Oh my God.
There's a song from a woman who lost the great lesbian love of her life. She never came out to her. And, yeah. All of these heartbreaking moments. And then here I come up. And I'm like, hey, lesbians. I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, what do I even do? This is like my whole shtick. And it's like, playing dumb, smart with like the whole gay, lesbian, straight stuff. And the gay, and of course, it's just amazing. Yeah. The gay guys laughing their asses off. The lesbians are truly booing.
Oh my
God.
God.
One elderly woman walked up and leaned over and said, you're not very funny. You're not being very funny.
Oh my
And so I said, fine. And I started talking about Britney Spears. Laughed. But get this. This is all fucking true. I got off the stage. Up walks Clover Honey, but a woman who I guess was managing the event walks up with her and says, I just want to quickly say something. She's like, one time many years ago, Richard Pryor, who everyone would agree is one of the best comedians of all time, he did a show for this big Asian conference, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he bombed because all of his jokes were about, like, he really thought the crowd had a better sense of humor about Asian culture, and they did not. And she's like, so it's really important that you know your audience when you come up here.
No.
She only meant me.
That was
She could have just said, Brian, nice try.
Oh my God.
But you're a bigot. Like that would have been smoother than like this anecdote. Although if she's comparing me to Richard Pryor, I'll take it as a compliment.
Seriously.
It was filthy though. It was pretty raunchy. Anyway, that was the New York and Poets Cafe.
Yep.
Sorry for that long sidebar.
Very nice. Jamaica it was fine, but I feel like they could have done so much more.
Very rushed.
Right?
Very rushed. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I thought it was too. The only thing that came out of that was Becky falling in with the director.
Right, but you know what, before that, did you see the way that guy grabbed Becky's arm in that little like snippet? So she's talking about how like there was no men there, just boys, and there was this little like super cut of all these men she was talking to.
Yeah.
And at one point she like steps to the side. That was my chair. Steps to the side of the bar, and the guy grabs her arm.
Oh, I didn't.
And I was like,
that.
Holy shit!
Wow.
And she grabs her arm back. I'm like, that's fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
I wrote, you can tell there was a chunk of editing when they found out about Jamaica because they clearly didn't know what was going on. Like, they're like,
right.
What's this? It took them way too long. And then suddenly they just started screaming. They kind of cut.
Yes.
Prank calls, so damn funny.
So damn funny.
The big fight, we talked about that already with Kevin and Becky. And let's see, stolen from the Indians. She's like, well, chip on your shoulder or not? I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I felt like they only sent them to Jamaica so that they could hook up with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was basically the idea.
Let's see. Okay, you're full of shit. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
I did write, like, Kevin just looked so annoyed at everyone. I just sort of wondered, why did he even decide to do this?
Completely.
Yeah.
The other thing is that he, more than anyone else, Andre does it a couple times. Kevin looks at the camera a lot.
Yeah.
And he makes eye gestures. Like, can you believe these white people? Like, truly. Like, when Becky said, oh, I grew up in, like, the whitest of white neighborhoods. He looks at the camera and, like, goes, like, ew. It's like, that's racist, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, come on. And he says that white people can't be racist. Black people can't be racist. They can only be prejudiced because black folks have no power. That was his words, not mine. And I think that, like, that is such a unfortunate place to start your way of thinking.
Yeah.
But you definitely have to watch Homecoming, though. Let's see. They're there to meet men, nude beach. I loved when Heather said, everyone looks like a high school principal on the nude beach. That was
true.
Great.
So true. That's exactly right.
That was interesting. Andre and Kevin are having dinner, and Andre seems to be having a great time. Then behind his back, Kevin says, I just feel like Andre wasn't interested in me at all. I'm like, what? That was weird. It seemed like they had a good time.
Yeah, it seemed like it. I don't know.
What did you think about, through your middle-aged lens, this Becky hooking up with the director, Bill?
I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Did you feel bad for him?
I didn't really feel bad for him, no.
Then or now? You didn't?
No, then or now. I actually could see... It's not going to make me look good. I could see me doing something like that.
Jesus!
At that age. Not having sex or anything, but just having fun and just drinking and just, make it out with one of the directors or
wow.
You know what I mean? And then just feeling kind of bad, like, oops, I kind of got him fired. But everybody makes their own choices.
Yeah. One thing that was weird about Jamaica, too, is that, like, Heather was talking to this really hot guy in the boat. And he's like, I haven't worked in 9 months. And what's funny about that is, Heather, who cares? You're here for 3 days.
Right. Like what are you going to marry
sleep
him?
with him. Right. I mean, come on. He's
hot.
Hot. He was totally hot.
Yeah.
Episode 9 begins with an amazing quote from Norm. I'm confused and completely disillusioned. I busted out laughing about Charles.
Norm is great. I wish he was on more. I'm telling you. I was getting just annoyed because it was so much about Julie and Eric for a big, big part of it. And, some of these other ones could have stepped up more. I loved Norm. I really did love Norm.
How about Jesus Christ, was this, so sad to even have to revisit this? But, Protect Reproductive Freedom, 1992, the million-person march. I'm like, has anything
Nothing
fucking
has
changed? 1992. They're at a Protect Reproductive Freedom march.
I don't understand why this is still happening. It doesn't make any sense to me that we are still trying to protect our bodies. But whatever.
And Julie says something, and you know her upbringing. We meet her in a church, for God's sake. Oops, that's weird. And she says, She says, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could have an abortion. But who am I to say that's what someone else should or shouldn't be able to do?
Correct. Exactly. That is as simple as that. It is as simple as that.
Joy Behar says about gay marriage. She's like, you don't like gay marriage? Don't get gay married.
Right, exactly.
Just
don't marry someone of the same sex.
There you go. Right.
It's so insane. And then this is also where she meets the homeless person.
Darlene.
This is the one part that I felt like it was a little bit too...
Stagey.
Yeah, a very stagey.
So fucking dangerous.
Can I stay the night? And very white savior-ish too.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm like, what are they doing? Why? Julie, go back to the loft. One night is not going to help you to understand the plight of these people.
Right.
It's only making you look like kind of an ass.
I mean, she is 19. It's like I just found it was a little abrupt. It was and I wondered if the show maybe put her up to that. I don't have any research on that.
I felt very much like the show put her up to it.
Because the show was not going to let her sit in a tunnel with a bunch of homeless people. They're filming her from afar. But I'm like, this is a bit crazy. And the roommates were all warning her too. They're like, Julie, this is really dangerous. Even with the camera,
it was very weird that it even
strange.
happened. It was sad that she couldn't find her the next day because allegedly she went out to find some crack
Yeah. Well, which Becky says that. Yes. Julie doesn't even say, which also gave me some weird feelings.
Well, didn't Julie say that she talked to some of her friends and they said that she came into some money and she was looking to buy... I felt like that was something Julie said to the camera.
Becky said it to the camera.
Oh, Becky did. Okay.
Yeah. Julie said all of her stuff was gone. And someone said that she went uptown. And
was it
then
the MTV producers that gave her?
Well, no, I know, really.
I mean, honestly, it was so sketchy. The whole situation just left such a bad taste in my mouth. The whole episode, really.
In the church, and she's like, "Oh, where's Darlene?" She's like, "Oh, you mean pudding?" I hope they're talking about the same person.
Right. Do we even
why
would she even know?
No, that's pudding. Why would she just call her Darlene? It's her name.
Right.
So anyway,
all of that.
That was a little jolting. Through my middle-aged lens, it didn't age as well. I completely agree with the white savior thing. It was a little like, how much are you really going to get out of this? I did think it was hilarious though, with like the guy with the condo when he's, you want to see my condo?
Oh yes.
I got heat, baby. I got heat. Like it's like that was kind of almost refreshing, like to see that there's like some sense of humor.
Right.
Oh my God.
What?
Norm talking about how he was being called a faggot growing up and he never knew what the word meant. And he was being bullied. And that was what happened with me.
It reminded me so much of conversations that I've had with you.
Yeah. Like people were calling me gay. And
you were like, what's wrong with that? Like,
come from parochial school and you wouldn't even dare say anything about that there. And then 4th grade was public school and I was getting, oh, you're gay. And I was so afraid because it was supposed to be this bad, awful thing. And I could only really ask about when Three's Company came out. And Three's Company, the rerun, when it was like Jack's gay. And I was like, oh, now I can find out what the word means. So I asked my mom.
Yep, I remember
and she told me. And like that was like, oh, and I didn't even think it was that bad.
And you're like, oh, is that all it is?
It's like, who cares? Like that's so
weird.
Exactly. And I should have known like that was something different about me to not think that it was gross. But it's so weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was very relatable. Charles needs space. Norm is coming on too fast. So there's trouble in paradise. Oh, and then one funny thing. We talked about this a lot in this podcast with Darlene.
Yes.
I am pretty sure, if memory serves, that the song they play when they're flashing back to Darlene and Julie's friendship, which happened 7 minutes ago, is I Will Remember You, Sarah McLachlan.
Oh my God.
And what's so funny is, or maybe it was even Amy Grant, I Will Remember You.
Oh, could
be,
yeah.
The funny thing is like, we talk about this a lot, it's like, oh my God, they're flashing back to something that happened 7 minutes ago.
Yes.
It was pretty,
that
made me laugh.
So dumb. It's so dumb. Yeah. It's like so weak.
Let's see, I don't have too many other notes to be really honest. Like the next 3, very light on the notes. I did write something similar to you. The relying on payphones in episode 10 is so real.
It's crazy,
because they're
right?
trying to contact, they find this dog. They have to find a payphone. Then Julie's mom
They're trying to figure out how to how to find the owner of this dog. Like,
yes,
we would just throw it up on like Insta. Or,
yeah, right,
like,
exactly.
Facebook or something.
But then Julie's mother can't reach each other, and then
right.
so she thinks she has all this time to go running around for ice